Welcome back to Best Books. We have a lot to catch up on. It has been a hot minute. It's been a good summer of reading, so I'm excited to share with you those books that I read. I read some absolute bangers this summer, I won't lie. It wasn't the best reading summer for me. I was all over the world, which you would think, vacationing on nice beaches, surely you were reading. I was indeed not reading. But in the last month, I was able to bang out a bunch more books. Unfortunately, I had to leave a couple summer books in the shelf for next year, but I refuse to read out of season because I think that ruins books. One book that I was super excited about reading in the season that very much fit the vibe was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I got to read this at the lake, which was so sweet because Carly Fortune writes the Canadian lakes and kind of wildlands so beautifully. It feels like you're in cottage country and you get to experience the lake life. I'd always be interested to hear how people who are not from Canada experience this book. But as someone who grew up always going to the lake, obviously in another part of Canada, it just really hit like the whole vibe of the book. And this is a sequel to Every Summer After. I lent that book out. It should be right there. I absolutely love that book. I loved it so much. It was so sweet. Her second book, not my favorite. Third book, I loved. The one set on PEI. This Summer Will Be Different. Very good. Very much my cup of tea. Now, One Golden Summer follows the other brother, if you know, you know, from the first book. Listen, was this book bad? No. Was it Every Summer After? Also no. I think it was just hard to recapture the magic of the first book. It was very difficult to compare this to the first book because they were very drastically different books, so it's hard to pit them against each other. I would say I enjoyed Every Summer After better than this one, only because this one doesn't have that kind of like angsty yearning while you're growing up and trying to figure out who you are and who you love. This was a little bit insta-lovey to me, but also very cute. I really enjoyed her twist on a third act breakup, because I hate a third act breakup, I will say. It was fun, it was summery, but I think I gave this 4.5 purely for vibes. Okay, then I read my very last Leigh Bardugo book. Oh my, actually, no, it's not my last. It's the last in the Grishaverse. I still have to read Ninth House and Hellbent. But the last in the Grishaverse. And I was avoiding it for so long, but then I was like, I don't want to forget everything that happened in the first book. This is the second book in the King of Scars duology, and it's supposed to be kind of the final conclusion to the fate of Ravka, of all of our favorite characters. And it felt a little bit long and drawn out, and it wasn't giving exactly what I wanted it to give, but it's just such a fun world to be in. It's such a fun vibe, like the fantasy and the power systems I really like, and the characters are just so lovable that I really loved getting to see more of them. I wasn't like blown away or left, like crying. It also leaves it slightly open for potentially more books. It has been a while since this one was published. Leigh, if you're listening, please write me more. Please. I beg you. I think I gave this like 4.25 stars. So we all know that Leigh Bardugo is an author that I will not shut up about. I would say she's on my Mount Rushmore for sure. 2 potential more authors I also got the privilege of reading this summer. Miss Taylor Jenkins Reid and later Miss Emily Henry, we will talk about. First, I got to read the new Taylor Jenkins Reid, Atmosphere. This book was so good. I am someone who grew up loving astronomy. That's something my family was super into, and I got to take some university courses about it. And so reading about, this is also semi-historical, like fiction, but it's set in like the 70s, I think, ish, 60s, 70s. Watching like a female scientist go through the process and trying to figure out like being a woman in STEM for real was really interesting. No spoilers, maybe light spoilers. It says Atmosphere, a love story, and the whole time I was thinking, I was like, what if the real love is the stars we found along the way. I don't know. I thought this was going to be about just like science is the love at the end. It is genuinely a love story. The ending, oh my goodness. I literally crashed out, I think. It was one of those endings where you just drop the book and you like have to look up and stare at the sky around you and be like, did anyone else just see that? Now, based on everything I've just said, you would think I gave it 5 stars. I'm a little bit tough when I give things 5 stars. I give this 4.75 only because it was more the ending or like the last third that was giving me those 5-star vibes. I wasn't getting it the whole time. And sometimes an ending can reverse that for me. In this case, I wasn't like enamored the whole time I was reading it, or it didn't feel like super groundbreaking and new in terms of like a 5-star read is a very visceral reaction, you know? And I didn't have that until the end. So still very good. I think on Goodreads I probably rounded it up to 5 stars. Does it have that like 6-star feeling? No, but very good, very fascinating. And yeah, if you love like astronomy or women and stuff, give it a read. Now, to segue from Taylor Jenkins Reid to Miss Emily Henry. I don't know if any of you guys have read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was very much giving The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. We follow 2 young writers competing for the privilege of telling the life story of a famous starlet and what her life was in the past. So it's dual timeline. I didn't feel like the historical timeline was super flushed out or that we understood Irene really as a character. And just because it was split timeline, but not about the same characters, it felt like we didn't get to know anything more about our 2 love interests, who are the journalists. Because if you're getting dual timeline, typically you're going back and learning things about the main characters so that by the end you have this full, robust conception of these 2 characters. But in this one, you're getting half of them only in a current timeline, falling in love very quickly. Not an insta-love fan, can you tell? And then going back into this other person's historical timeline, which was interesting and intriguing, but I didn't really believe in the chemistry of our 2 characters here because they get so little screen time. Page time? Book time. Okay, but also can we appreciate, I love a little gold foil engraving, so cute. In theory, reading an Emily Henry book is always a 5-star experience. Like, her writing is just so gorgeous, it's so beautiful, and I always just fall in love with whoever she's writing about. But I think I would actually give this like 4.25 stars. Then we're going to talk about my biggest disappointment of the summer, probably, and that was One Italian Summer. Now, I can't really tell you why I didn't like this book without spoiling it, but basically we're following a woman whose mother passes away, and she leaves her husband at home to go on a trip where she then proceeds to hallucinate her mother when her mom was like 20 and in Italy. There were a lot of themes explored in this book that I think were explored quasi-ethically. There are some loopholes that Miss Rebecca Surley, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, used to get out of a couple ethical binds, I think. And I still didn't appreciate it. I understand this book was about a woman going through the grieving process, but what you kind of learn is that she had this really weird relationship with her mom. And moms are fantastic. Moms can be one of your best friends. It felt like the thesis of the book was that your mother can be the great love of your life. And that felt weird. I could be wrong. If any of you have read this book, leave your comments down below. I also think another side venture that this character went on was actually super unethical and quite a strange exploration of freedom and choice, and overall left me with the impression that our main character was just deeply unlikable. Sorry. Was it like that bad of a book? Probably not, but because so many things like that in the book pissed me off, and it's a short book, I was like, how did you pack that much frustration into such a short book. I give it 2 stars. Sorry. And I know it's a super popular book talk book, so I felt bad rating it like that. So I am someone who desperately loved the Folk of the Air series. I know a lot of people have very valid criticisms of that series. It's YA. I think you can get away with a lot when it's YA, you know? I enjoyed it. I had a silly, goofy time. Recently, just before the summer, read How the King of Elfame Learned to Hate Stories. This is a beautifully illustrated book. I don't know if, oh, and there's no illustrations on that. Just like fun things in there, you know? These short stories give you little glimpses into the lives of some of the other characters, mostly Cardan. A lot of what Holly Black writes is also very reminiscent of fairy tales, nursery rhymes, kind of some of those classic whimsical stories. Is that one entertaining? Yes. Is it like a good book to sit down with? No. The Stolen Heir follows Oak from the third trilogy, who is like the little brother. And now he's all grown up, and there's another character that you meet from the first trilogy that is now in here. This was interesting. Honestly, I can't really condense my thoughts on this book because I found it largely boring, but I also couldn't stop reading it. I think I finished this more out of dedication to Holly Black's writing rather than genuine enjoyment. But it wasn't bad. Like, if you did like the first trilogy, I think you would still enjoy this. You get to see the same realms, the same magic systems, a lot of the same characters. So it's fun. I am just really hoping that the second book has a lot more to offer. And for that reason, I rated this 3.75 stars. Now, most recently, I finished Cloud Atlas. This is literary fiction. There's also a movie, apparently, which now I need to watch. My cousin gave this to me like about 2 years ago, and I had been putting it off because she's way smarter than me, so anytime she enjoys a book, I know it's going to be like way too smart for me to comprehend. And I did just finish earlier in the year the book that she got me this most recent Christmas by Kazuo Ishiguro, which was very good. And so then I was like, I need to just get over my fear of big books, you know, big smart books. This book is told in a very interesting fashion. It is 6 or 7 different storylines, all throughout different times in history. And it starts kind of in the mid 1800s and then goes to a post-apocalyptic Hawaii. Each section is somehow connected to the next one and then back again. And really the whole time I was trying to figure out like if we're gonna be solving the world's problems, or if we're gonna be, you know, this kind of dystopian fighting the power type thing. But really this was just a study in humanity, in what makes us human, what gives us our characteristics, what are the commonalities that tie us through the generations and through different circumstances. A lot of the storylines in here are dealing with what do humans do in the face of injustice, or how can you make a difference if you're the only drop in the bucket in the face of a whole ocean. And the point is kind of that willingness and that fight that we have inside of us never really goes away, and that transcends different circumstances, being oppressed by different power structures and regimes and whatnot, down to the silly little fun, mishappy storylines, to the big post-apocalyptic kind of survivalist narratives. Each storyline is told in a different format as well. So the very first guy, it's that early explorer, transatlantic diary entries where he's writing. One is told kind of like a thriller, the next like a memoir, another one like letters to a certain person. The other is sort of like an interview recording. So it's very interesting. You're always getting different pieces. A lot of it I did have to kind of look up and also try to understand. Like I had to go on Reddit afterwards and be like, hey, what are we doing? I literally had to ask ChatGPT. I was like, what's stringing all these together, right? I'm like, what is going over my head? What do I need to work on comprehending? And that actually added to the enjoyment of the reading because I could tell that I was interested in figuring this out outside of the book and not just reading it, putting it down and saying, okay. So I found it really interesting and I gave this 4 stars. Okay, great. That was my summer reading wrap up. There were a whole bunch more books that I audiobooked. Nothing super to note with all those. I just thought these would be the most exciting ones. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the most robust summer of reading, but I did find a lot of books that I really liked, which is always a joy, especially when you don't have a lot of time to read and you do happen upon the gems. It's a lot more encouraging than if you spent a whole month trying to get through an absolute dud. So I'm really excited for the fall and to see what the next couple months of reading are going through. I'm gonna have my fall TBR up soon, so that's really exciting. I just ordered a lot of new books, so that is going to be very fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some good book recommendations. If you have any opinions about these books, tell me. And tell me if you agreed or disagreed with any of my opinions. And I will see you in the next video. See ya!